You put a plate of shrimp in front of me, put that plate of shrimp in front of me. Let's see if it won't be gone in 10 minutes. Because baby, I love me some shellfish. But it can lead to you having gout. What's up, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel, Spelling About IoT with TK. My tea's not quite ready yet, so I'm not gonna sip it, but she's almost ready for us. But I hope you are excited for another video on the channel today. We'll be talking about bones today and continuing with our very last video in our bone series, but this bones video is going to be a little different than those previous, but I'll explain that in a minute. Make sure you go ahead and comment down below things that you want me to do in the future. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that post notification bell so you don't miss any time that I'm uploading, and make sure you share this video so your friends can come over and spill some good old tea with me too. So with that being said, like I said, today's video is going to be on clinical cases and all things clinical cases related that are not necessarily every clinical case, but we're going to be hitting on some of the more important things and some of the bigger diseases related to different bone physiology that you probably have heard of in class, and things that you've probably gone over in class if you're an undergrad, things that your professors have probably used as examples. And if you're in medical school or a nursing student or something like that, these are probably cases and diseases that you actually heard of and learned about in class throughout your education. So the purpose of this video is just to help you guys with some of those question stems that you might see with some of those diseases, and really connect the things that we've talked about previously with our bone development and our bone anatomy, and connecting those things with the diseases that we commonly see in the skeletal system. Just so you guys know, we are dividing up this video into 3 different categories as far as the diseases go. So the first of diseases are diseases that are affecting osteoclastic activity. That is going to be osteoporosis and Paget disease. And then we have the diseases that affect our osteoblastic activity. That is Osteomalacia and Osteogenesis Imperfecta. And then we have the 3 different types of arthritis that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Osteoarthritis, we're going to talk about Rheumatoid Arthritis, and then we're going to talk about gout. So those are the clinical cases that we'll be covering today, just so you guys can have a good basis of how to differentiate those diseases when you see them in a question stem. And before we jump into this, just for anybody that's curious about why I have changed my scenery, we are in the process of moving, so the rest of this apartment outside of this little area that I've cleaned out is a mess. So yeah, we're in the process of transitioning some things. So these next couple of videos are gonna look like this, and then you'll see a whole new space, a whole new area that we're super excited to move into and get all organized for you guys. I'm super excited for that. So that is something that you guys can look forward to come, and I'll have some behind the scenes and things like that. If you're interested in coming along with our moving journey and those types of things, check out the couple channel that I have with my husband, TK and Sway, and I'll link that up in the cards, or I'll put the link for that down in the comment section below if you're interested in following along with our move and where we're going, decorating and all that stuff, and cooking, and all those things couple channel related. But anyways, to get back to what we are here for, I gotta get some tea so I can, put my throat together. But, so just to get back into the content that we're covering today. So like I said, we are covering clinical cases. And those clinical cases are the clinical cases that are related to everything skeleton related. The first set of cases that we're gonna go over are the cases that affect our osteoclastic activity. So these are the ones that are going to affect our bone resorption. And if you don't know that osteoclasts are related to bone resorption, make sure you go ahead and check out the video that I'm going to link up in the card. I don't know what side it's on, but one of these sides. And check out the bone cell functions video so you have a good idea of what those cells do and how they function and why these diseases make sense and what they do. So Like I said, the osteoclastic activity diseases are what we're going to cover first. The first disease that we have is osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a disease that is related to decreased bone density. This is because it is related to osteoclastic activity being decreased. This is related to the estrogen deficiency, typically, or it can be related to a drug that you're taking or something like that, or also could be related to various different things, but it's typically related to estrogen deficiency, which is why in a question stem you may typically see it presented as an older woman that comes into your office at the family med doctor, and she is breaking her bones a lot, and she's breaking her bones in ways that typically she wouldn't. Like, she's maybe falling down. I'm sorry, excuse my washing machine. But she might be in a position where she's falling down in a way that she might not have fallen before. Now she breaks her hip, or now she breaks her wrist. Her bones are just a lot more brittle than they used to be. You might also notice that this older woman now walks with a hunch and appears a little bit shorter than she did before. These are just a few common things that you might see with somebody that has osteoporosis, and these things all stem from the fact that the bone density is decreasing. Most of the time, how somebody is diagnosed with osteoporosis is because the symptoms that they have make sense for osteoporosis, and they're around that age, probably an older woman. So that's typically how we look at osteoporosis. It's just a disease that the bone density decreases over time, and it typically affects those women that are older because of menopause, where their estrogen amounts are decreasing. So that estrogen deficiency then leads to the osteoclastic activity increasing, so you have more bone resorption, so thus the bones become weaker. So that's osteoporosis. The other disease that we have that is related to osteoclastic activity is pageant disease. Now, pageant disease and osteoporosis are similar because the way a person presents is going to be very similar. They could also be an older person that has pageant disease, and they are going to be a person that probably is going to have a lot of fractures and have a lot of things that have occurred as far as when they fall, they might be breaking bones more than they typically would. Pageant disease, however, the exact cause for it isn't known, but it looks like it's very much so genetics driven, because if somebody in your family has pageant disease, you're very likely to also have pageant disease. So it's looking like, for the most part, that it probably is genetics driven, but research is still being done to determine whether or not it's really genetics driven. But the way that pageant disease works is really, pageant disease is an interesting one, because you're increasing your osteoclastic activity, similarly to how you did in osteoporosis. But the difference here is that when you increase that osteoclastic activity, allowing for that bone to break down more and more and more and more and more, when it's breaking down, the osteoblast is looking around like, oh, you're breaking down. Oh, we're doing this. Oh, my house is coming down. Like, oh my gosh. Like, it'd be like if you were sitting in this house, if I was sitting in this apartment right now, and the walls started falling around me, and I panicked and started trying to put the bricks back up myself. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Oh shoot, this is too much. So that's basically what it would be. It would be the equivalent of you just sitting in a house that is falling down, and you're trying to put the bricks up. And because you're putting the bricks up so fast and trying to make sure that that the house doesn't just crumble around you, that you don't die in the house, basically get buried alive, you're putting them up haphazardly and just throwing bricks here and throwing bricks there, throwing something there, throwing something there, throwing something there, just to try and get the stuff out of your way and also try and build back up. And because you're just throwing stuff up haphazardly, it's not good. The structure isn't great. Like, the structure's just falling back down as you're putting it back up, basically. And that's basically what happens in pageant disease. In pageant disease, the osteoblasts try to compensate for the fact that there's increased osteoclastic activity. So the osteoblasts are trying to throw up bone tissue all over the place to make sure that the bone isn't just brittle and breaking down super quickly. And as a result of this, the bone is putting up unorganized, haphazard bone structure. And by doing that, the bone is very weak. So it's very, very prone to breaking, and it's going to cause pain. You're going to have muscle pain and generally bone pain because your bones are very weak. So that's one of the major signs that you might see that you might not see in osteoporosis is the pain. Because if somebody that has osteoporosis, if they have pain, it's typically associated with a fracture, and you'll see it on an x-ray. But a person that has paget disease, the pain might not be related to a fracture specifically. It might just be that their bones are literally in pain, or that their muscles are literally in pain because of the way that the tissue is being thrown up, and because of the way the tissue is being thrown up and organized. So that's the major difference between osteoporosis and paget disease. The presentations are going to look the same in the question stem. So when you're looking at diseases, when you're looking at a question stem and trying to differentiate between osteoporosis or paget disease, the major thing that you're going to want to look at is looking to see if they point out the gender. The big thing with question stems that I learned in medical school is that if they tell you something, they can tell you things that are irrelevant. Yes, they can, and they try to throw you off. But if they take the time to tell you the gender of the person and that there's an older person and stuff like that, pay attention to those things, because those are little nuggets to help you put together that this disease is what it is. Because if you're reading the question stem and you're seeing that somebody is getting a lot of fractures from falling a lot, and they're starting to hunch over a little bit, and then it also tells you that they're an older woman, and that they've gone to their gynecologist because they've had hot flashes and stuff like that recently, or when they go to you, they're complaining and saying they're having hot flashes and those types of things. They're describing menopause to you, and they're also having issues with fractures when they fall and stuff like that. Then you can already put together that that's osteoporosis. If you're looking at a menopausal age woman that's having other symptoms related to menopause as well as the fractures, there you go. You're probably looking at osteoporosis. Or just an older woman that might not mention anything about menopause, but just an older woman that's falling a lot, and her bones are breaking. And they might show you an X-ray also of a fracture in that older woman. So that would also be a good indicator to say, okay, this is osteoporosis, because she's falling and she's breaking her bones. Her bones are looking brittle and those types of things. And if you want to go, we want to go into more detail about what the imaging and stuff like that would look like. We can get there. If you are interested in that, make sure you comment down below, and we can go into a little bit more detail about some of those things. But that's really the major thing with the question stem for osteoporosis. Now, in paget disease, the major thing that you're going to look for is it could be a male or a female. It could be a male or female with osteoporosis too, but osteoporosis is typically more associated with females, and that's kind of how they're going to set up question stems to give you the most common case. So keep that in mind too. When you're looking at a question stem and you're trying to figure out what disease it is, they're giving you 9 times out of 10, they're giving you one of the most common presentations of the disease. They're not trying to trick you that bad. They're not going to give you an older man. They're probably not going to give you an older man that might be falling a lot. And they want you to put together that is osteoporosis, because that isn't the typical presentation of somebody with osteoporosis. Now, if you do get a question that is talking about a man and said that his father also had brittle bones in his older age, or his brother also had brittle bones in his older age, and he's coming in complaining of a lot of bone pain, and he has had and you notice in his chart that he has had fractures in the past, then that is looking more like paget disease, because there is a family history of it. They're having the pain as well as the fractures, and it's and you can kind of eliminate to a certain extent osteoporosis, because there isn't a drug that you can see like corticosteroids, for instance, cause osteoporosis a lot of times. So that is one of the things that if you see somebody that's on a corticosteroid, if you saw that man that I just explained to you, but he was on a corticosteroid, then that might give you a reason to say, oh, this is osteoporosis and not paget disease, because he's on this drug that could be doing this. But the thing is that I told you that man had a family history of paget disease in his family. So that could be where things get a little bit wishy-washy, which is why I say that typically on exams and things like that, your professors and your exam writers are going to give you the most common case. So with paget disease, it's probably going to be a male or a woman that's having that bone pain and fractures, and they probably have a family history of somebody that has done similar things. Versus osteoporosis is going to be probably an older woman that's going through menopause, or somebody that's taking corticosteroids, or some type of drug that leads to them, that causes bone resorption to be increased. So that's typically what those two different things are going to look like on the question stem, and how you can tell them apart. The next diseases that we're going to be looking at are diseases that are affecting our osteoblastic activity. And when I'm talking about osteoblastic activity, in this case, I'm talking about all things related to mineralization. So anytime that that bone tissue is being laid down, that's what I'm talking about. Really for the most part, I'm talking about the tissue itself that is being laid down, and that's what's being affected. But the reason why it's related to the osteoblast is because the osteoblast is what lays down the tissue. So in this case scenario with both of these diseases, the tissue that's being laid down is wrong. There's something off with what is being laid down, which is leading to the issues that we're having. So the first disease that we're going to talk about is osteomalacia. Osteomalacia is a disease that is related to vitamin D deficiency. So this is typically related to those people that don't go outside a lot. This is one of the reasons why vitamin D is so important. It's important for you to go outside and see the sun. Please go outside and see the sun today. If you have not done it already today, go outside. Okay? Because we don't want osteomalacia, sis. We ain't got time for those problems. We don't have time for those issues. Even though that's like a drastic thing. Because you don't go outside one day doesn't mean you're going to have osteomalacia. But this is a vitamin D deficiency. So, if you can't go outside, please make sure you're finding some type of supplement for vitamin D. Talk to your physician about that if you're having struggles with getting some time outside, because it is super important for your health. It's a public service announcement. But back to our regular scheduled programming. So, vitamin D deficiency or osteomalacia affects bone deposition because the vitamin D plays a vital role in a lot of parts in your body, but specifically it plays a huge role with with you getting calcium and phosphate, which are a huge part of the bone tissue that is laid that makes up the osteoid tissue. And if you don't know what osteoid is, make sure you check out my video up in the cards on the bone anatomy and bone histology, so you can get that vocab that you'll need to make sure that all these videos are making sense to you. This vitamin D deficiency does affect some of the minerals that ends up in your osteoid. It affects the mineralization and how that osteoid eventually comes together. So the osteoid is not as hard as it should be because you're not getting all the calcium and other minerals that you need for it to be as hard as it's supposed to be. So basically what's happening in osteomalacia is you're making really soft bones. Your bones aren't as hard as they should be because you're not getting all the minerals that you need because you don't have enough vitamin D in your body, so you're not making the vitamins that you're not making the tissue that you need in the way that you need to make it, basically. So by you having soft bones, you're going to have pain when you have a lot of movement because your bones aren't really capable of taking on a lot of capacity. So when you're moving a lot and doing a lot of things, your bones start to hurt. You're also going to have weak bones and weak muscles because the things that your vitamin D contributes to, it doesn't just contribute to the minerals in your bones, it also contributes to some of the minerals in your muscles. And we can get there if you want a video on how we utilize vitamin D in the body and then use it to contribute to things like our bones. We can definitely do a video on that. So please comment down below if you are interested in seeing a video like that, or hit the like button if you're interested in seeing a video related to vitamin D deficiency. Well, vitamin D generally and just its function in our body and what it does for us. But yeah, so like I said, you're just not taking in enough vitamin D, leads to you having those weak bones, that bone pain, and it honestly will lead to you being very fatigued and just feeling weak overall because you're not getting that vitamin D, which plays a huge role in you just feeling energized, and also you feeling like you have enough strength just to make it on. So being aware of how big of a role vitamin D plays in your life can truly make sure that you are healthy for a long period of time. Make sure that your bones and that your muscles are as strong and healthy as they need to be. So that is pretty much osteomalacia. The next disease that we're going to compare this one to is Osteogenesis Imperfecta. Now, Osteogenesis Imperfecta has 5 different types that it can form, and we're not going to talk about all of them or even the specific ones. Just know that all of them do not present exactly the same. There is a form of Osteogenesis Imperfecta that the child does not survive. But the form of Osteogenesis Imperfecta that we're talking about in particular is a form that the child does survive, but they have extremely brittle bones. Extremely brittle bones, and these bones being brittle is because of a mutation. There's a mutation of the collagen fibers that are being laid down in the bone, and that's one of the things that allows a bone to be hard. So in Osteogenesis Imperfecta, this child is probably 9 times out of 10, because it's a genetic thing, is something they present with at a young age. So 9 times out of 10, this child is probably going to be bow-legged, or have some type of, you're going to be able to noticeably tell in their legs or in their extremities that their bones aren't made as thick as they should be. It looks like it is difficult for them to walk around. It looks like it is difficult for them to hold themselves up, because this mutation does not allow for their bones to be made as strong as they should be, because collagen does play a major role in the strength that your muscles have. Now, collagen also plays a huge role in your muscles. So that's the other reason why the child is going to probably look a little bit more frail and going to look really skinny in their presentation, because their muscles aren't developing in the way that they should either. So Osteogenesis Imperfecta and Osteomalacia do present similarly, because of the molecules that are affected play a role in both the bones and the muscles for both of these diseases. So the people are going to present in a similar way. Typically, though, Osteogenesis Imperfecta is going to be in a child because it is a genetics related thing. So it's going to be in somebody that is younger, and it's going to be, and they might tell you that it's caused by mutation, or you might because they're typically, when you have younger people in the question stem, you can kind of make an assumption that it's probably genetics related because they are younger, and a lot of things don't typically happen unless they got it from mom. It's a disease that mom had, that isn't necessarily genetic, like an infectious disease that she can pass along, or it is something that is inherently genetic in their genes that is causing them to have the issue. Or, I mean, there can be spontaneous things, but for the most part, if it happens when they're really, really young, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and say either they got this from mom, or they got this from another child or somebody they were presented to, like an infectious disease of some sort, or it's genetic. So Osteogenesis Imperfecta is going to present very, very early on in life. While Osteomalacia is probably going to be somebody that's older. It's probably going to be somebody in their 30s, their 20s, 30s, 40s. There's not really an age range in particular, but it's just not going to be like a newborn, or like a very young kid. Where Osteogenesis Imperfecta could be like a newborn, or a very, very, like a 2-year-old, a toddler. But your Osteomalacia is very likely not to be those people, because typically kids spend a lot of time outside. So that's why it wouldn't be necessarily associated. That's one of the major reasons why Osteomalacia probably wouldn't be associated with a young child, because you're probably going to spend a lot more time with them outdoors. So that's preventing them from having that vitamin D deficiency, because they are going outdoors and they are getting that exposure. So that's kind of one of the major way that you can differentiate between those 2 diseases when looking at the question stem. I utilize the age as a really big thing that I use at that point, and then also see if they mention anything about genetics. It's a mutation of the gene, so it typically isn't something that's passed down from family member to family member to family member, but it is typically something that is seen very, very early on in life. Very early on in life. And people that have Osteogenesis Imperfecta, they typically don't live long, because you have to also remember that one of the major organs that keep you functioning is your heart, and it is a muscle. So if you're having problems with the rest of your muscles, and keep that in mind when you're talking about all diseases that can affect your muscles, when you have a problem with the muscle, you're probably going to have a problem with the heart, because the heart is just a big muscle. So that is those are the 2 major diseases that we're going to talk about. Those are 2 major diseases that we're going to talk about in relation to our osteoblastic activity that are affecting mineralization. So keep those separated, your Osteomalacia versus your Osteogenesis Imperfecta, and the major causes there. Do keep in mind they're going to present in similar ways outside of really the age of the person. Alrighty. So our last chunk of diseases are our arthritises. So I wanted to hit arthritis because arthritis is a super common, there are super common diseases that are related to your skeletal system. So I wanted to make sure we hit on them because they are also things that people commonly mix up. So I wanted to provide an opportunity to just kind of separate them and help you guys kind of differentiate between the two, between the three that I'm going to talk about. And these are the three that you most commonly do see in question stems and on exams and those types of things. So the first type of arthritis that we're going to go over is osteoarthritis. And osteoarthritis is an arthritis that I personally have seen because my dad struggled with osteoarthritis. He actually just recently had a hip replacement for one of his hips, which is one of the major ways to fix a hip replacement once it's gotten so bad that you can't really do anything. Well, one of the major ways to fix osteoarthritis once your cartilage is gone and there's not really much give in there. So, in case you needed something for treatment when you're thinking about osteoarthritis, hip replacements of the joint is one of the common things that people do. Is one of the common reasons why people get a hip replacement or a knee replacement is typically because of their osteoarthritis. So osteoarthritis is the wear and tear arthritis. This is the arthritis that happens surely because you have had a lot of movement or a lot of friction on the joint, and they're starting to rub together just like that. So your bones are starting to rub together and it's starting to be very uncomfortable for you to move. And it's typically because people that typically have osteoarthritis are typically athletes. And they're typically also larger athletes because you already have a lot of weight on your joints when you're a larger person. If you know me and my family, then you know that my dad is definitely a larger person. So that's one of the reasons why he struggles with osteoarthritis. And he also used to run with weighted vests on. He used to run very long distances with those weighted vests on. And that constant impact also contributed to his osteoarthritis. That's why they say that running is a blessing and a curse for us because it can wear down on your joints. So it's important to make sure you're not always running on the same side of the street. You're not always running around the track in the same direction. So you don't wear down your shoes, and also so you don't wear down your joints. Your joints wear down in a similar way to how your shoes can wear down. So just keeping those types of things in mind when you are running and walking and doing different exercises, that making sure that you're not doing it too often or not doing it with too much resistance on, too much weight on you, so that you aren't causing more injury to the joints than you aren't causing more harm to the joints than good to the joints. So yeah, osteoarthritis is the wear and tear arthritis. Person's typically going to have a lot of pain in the joint, and this pain is typically going to be most common after a long day, after they've done a lot of stuff. They won't have the pain after they've rested. After they rested, they typically feel great, typically feel wonderful first thing in the morning because their joints have had some time to rest. And when you sleep, your joints get to separate a little bit so that there isn't as much pressure right there on the joints, and causing them to sit like this. Like they sit after you've been walking around on them all day. When you first wake up in the morning, your joints have a little bit of space because you've been laying down. But then as you start to put the gravity starts to incur and the pressure from you walking and stuff, and then your joints end up like this, and then when you're walking, they start rubbing across each other like that. And that's why you have so much pain when you have osteoarthritis, but it's only pain after you've done a lot of movement and after you've done a lot of things. And I can definitely attest to that my dad has definitely gone through that when he moved a lot, when he would move a lot, he would have the most pain. But when he was sitting just chill, but he didn't like sitting and just chilling. That's not him. So it's a balance in that. And that's typically the problem with most people that have osteoarthritis, is that they're not the type of people to just sit and do nothing. So they slowly but surely start to make it worse because they want to continue to do the things that they've always done, but despite the pain. So that's one of the that's one of the struggles with people that often are diagnosed with osteoarthritis, is getting them to sit down, even though it hurts. I mean, they're typically, they're just those type of people that are on the move and on the go, and that's probably how they ended up with the osteoarthritis, is them constantly moving, constantly doing their thing, and they just started wearing down those joints slowly but surely over time. So that's osteoarthritis. The next arthritis that we have, and that's typically associated with older people, because it's the wear and tear, is typically the one that is associated with older people. So, now we have rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is the inflammation arthritis. It's the arthritis that is the autoimmune disease. It is the one where your body is attacking your joints, and nobody really knows why your body attacks your joints when you have rheumatoid arthritis. Now, in osteoarthritis, that typically affects your larger joints. It affects your knees, your hips, your shoulder, those larger joints. Rheumatoid arthritis, however, affects the smaller joints. So you'll have rheumatoid. You'll see a lot of people that have they'll have like huge knuckles because the bone has started to erode or started to break down because of the autoimmune because the immune system is attacking the joint. You'll start to see the joint starts to inflame because it's basically acting as if there's an infection at each one of your joints. And your body is just attacking, and it doesn't really know why it's attacking it, but that's why it's attacking it. But it's attacking it. And because of that, your joints end up really, really swollen. So it's typically the hand is one of the most common places that you'll see, right along those knuckles. But it's typically just your smaller joints is what you can think of when you're doing rheumatoid arthritis versus osteoarthritis being the larger joints. Rheumatoid also differentiates from osteoarthritis because somebody that has rheumatoid arthritis is more likely to have that pain first thing in the morning because the fluid has just built up in the joints because you've just been laying there. So because that fluid has just built up around the joint, it causes pain at the joint itself because it's difficult for you to move it. It causes a lot of stiffness because there's so much fluid there. But as you start to move and stuff like that, it starts to loosen up and it doesn't feel as bad. So somebody that has rheumatoid arthritis, they're going to feel bad. Their joints are going to hurt first thing in the morning. But once they start moving, once they start going, things start going in their day, it starts to feel a lot better because the fluid is breaking up and it's starting to move as you're doing things and it's starting to circulate. So it's not feeling as bad. So that's why one of the major things with people that have rheumatoid is that they'll tell them that they need to move. Even though it hurts, you need to move those joints so that you don't continue to stay stiff so that it can get better, because that is one of the ways that it will help alleviate the pain is by moving those joints around. And rheumatoid arthritis is genetic. It is a thing that if somebody in your family had it, especially if an immediate family member had it, you're very likely to get it, unlike osteoarthritis, which is wear and tear. This is genetic. And it also is, because it's genetic, is very common in younger people. I know somebody that is my age that has rheumatoid arthritis, and that's crazy. But she has siblings and things like that also have rheumatoid arthritis, so it makes sense. But it's just crazy to me that somebody my age, somebody so young, could be struggling so much with their joints. Because you think that joint pain and stuff like that is only associated with older people. But rheumatoid arthritis is one of those examples of an arthritis that does not just affect those that are older. It can affect somebody that's in their 20s. It can affect somebody that's in their 30s. It can affect somebody that's in their teens. It just depends on when it decides to present. When it decides to present itself. Because it's autoimmune, this is something that can present itself in stress or in stressful environments and things like that. People that struggle with rheumatoid arthritis do have flare-ups. So when they get sick or when they're in a stressful environment and things like that, it's something that they have to be aware of. Similar to other autoimmune diseases or other diseases that go dormant in the body, it's just something that you have to be aware of, that whenever you are in a high stress environment, or you are sick, or you're in any situation where your immune system might be a little depleted, you are likely to have a flare-up. So that's another thing that you can think of with somebody that has rheumatoid arthritis that you can use to help you differentiate that from other arthritis. So the last arthritis that we're going to cover in the last disease of this video is the gout. So gout is probably one of those things that most people know somebody that is struggling with gout. Especially in the Black community, a lot of us know people that are struggling with gout. And it's honestly because of the way that we live. because gout is a very, 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 very preventable disease. It's something you can very much so prevent. The same way you can prevent osteoarthritis, but osteoarthritis, because it's so related to wear and tear, typically people that are very healthy and that live healthy lifestyles can end up with osteoarthritis. So that's more of a balancing act of making sure that you don't do, too much cardio or too much or carry too many heavy things, or you can prevent it, but it's something that slowly but surely happens over time. And it's something that, somebody that has a healthy lifestyle, because my dad, he's ran marathons my whole life. And he's always been very healthy. He was in the military, so he's always been very healthy. But it's just that because of how active he was, it eventually led to him having the problems in his joints. Which is another reason why it's super important not to do cardio every single day of your life. Sorry if I just stepped on your toes, but it's the thesis. Stop running every day. You don't have to, if you're looking to get the shape or whatever you're looking for. If you're looking to get the physique that you want, or you're looking to even just get healthier, running every single day isn't great for your joints. It's just not. You can do it in moderation. You can find other, good places to run that aren't just hard impact, but it's important to find some balance so that you don't end up wearing down your joints. And doing things like strength training, lifting weights and stuff like that, they help to increase the strength of your joints because they're increasing the muscles and things around your joints that are supporting your joints, to make sure that your joints don't have to take on all of the weight and all of the stress. So when you're doing strength training and strengthening those muscles and strengthening your bones, they're allowing for compensation of the joint so that the joint doesn't have to take on anything, so it is less likely to get osteoporosis later on in life. So that's why strength training, for instance, is super important, and not just jumping and running and doing those things that can damage or wear down your joints over time. But back to the gout. Gout is one of those diseases, like I said, that is super preventable. It's super preventable because people that get gout typically get it because they're eating a lot of things. They're eating a lot of meats that have purines in them. It's just a particular molecule that builds up in the body, and is eventually the way we break it down, we don't break it down well. So when you eat a lot of it, it can lead to you getting basically little needles. When the body tries to break it down, it breaks it down into these little needles, needle-like structures. They're pretty small, but they're little needle-like structures, and those needle-like structures cause you to feel pricking on the inside of your skin, because we don't know how to break down the purines that are in these things. So this is why they tell you not to eat a ton of red meat, not to eat a lot of shellfish, not to drink a lot of alcohol. These three things are three of the most common ways that somebody can get gout. Not to say I'm telling you that you shouldn't eat red meat and that you shouldn't eat shellfish, because baby, I love me some red meat on a good day. It's not my favorite thing to eat, but I do love it. And you put a plate of shrimp in front of me, put that plate of shrimp in front of me. Let's see if it won't be gone in 10 minutes. Because baby, I love me some shellfish. But it can lead to you having gout. If you're eating it in excess, if you're eating way too much of it, because your body doesn't really know how to break down everything that shellfish has, the same way as the purines that are in red meats. It doesn't know how to break all that stuff down, the same way your body doesn't really know how to break down alcohol in a super effective way, so that you don't end up with this same issue. So a balanced diet is basically what I'm telling you is the key to not getting gout. A balanced diet, making sure you're not just eating red meats and shellfish every single day and drinking every single day. Making sure that you have good balance. Because the gout, it ain't nothing to play with, baby. Because them little crystals I told y'all that feel like needles on the inside of that foot, that feel like needles on the inside of that skin, baby. Somebody can have a gout and they sitting there and they got their foot up, and if they having a flare up, baby, you can't even put a sheet on that foot. You can't even put a sheet on that toe. They will scream like you just punched them in the neck. Like, what's wrong with you? You put the little sheet. You sitting there like this, and they put that little sheet in there. Oh, baby! Is it that deep? I done seen it. I done seen it for myself, though. I done seen it for myself. And it is that deep to them. It is that deep to them. You put that shit on that foot of somebody that got gout and see if they won't punch you in the neck. Because that thing is going to hurt them. It's going to hurt. Because the needles on the inside, like I said, are on the inside. And it typically occurs on that big toe. It's typically in that big toe. So you'll probably try and put a sheet over that big toe and it will not, because it's basically like a bunch of needles coming out from underneath the skin. So you got something on the inside of your foot that's just pricking and pushing and causing all this inflammation on the outside of your toe, on the inside of your toe, and you can't help it. And then somebody puts something on the outside and it's like, oh no, I can't even take that pressure. Can't even take the pressure. So somebody that has had gout in the past, they won't have that pain all the time. They won't have it all the time. If they decrease the amount of red meats they're eating and decrease the alcohol they're drinking and decrease the shellfish that they're taking in, they won't feel it. They won't have that issue. So increasing and eating those things once you've had gout can lead to a flare-up. But it's all about balance. It's all about making sure that everything is well balanced. So if you have gout, or if you know somebody that has gout, please encourage them. If you know they drink a lot, or if you know they eat a lot of red meat or a lot of shellfish, encourage them not to, so they don't if they don't want to experience those flare-ups, because that is what is literally causing the flare-ups. Now, they don't care, and they want to do what they want to do, because typically somebody that has gout is going to be an older person, because it takes a while for your body to get to a place where it's so bad that you're creating these crystals and you having this prickling happening on the inside of your foot. It doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't just happen because you had a crazy 4 years in college and you went hard and had a good time. You're not going to have gout because you went hard in college and had a great 4 years. Like that, it's not anything like that. This is somebody that's an alcoholic. They're very likely to have gout. Somebody that just eats terribly. That is an alcoholic and eats terribly. Somebody that just eats terribly and eats a lot of red meat all the time, a lot of shellfish all the time. It's not necessarily that you eat red meat all the time. It's that you eat red meat, and the purines that come out is typically when people don't cook the meat properly. When you overcook the meat, it's typically when the toxins start coming out of it, and when it's not at the right temperature. So that also plays a huge role, is making sure that you're cooking your things properly, and then you'll be less likely to have some of these issues as well. So that's really the three major types of arthritis: the wear and tear arthritis, osteoarthritis, the autoimmune arthritis, or rheumatoid arthritis, and then I kind of call it the preventable arthritis, the gout, because you don't have to have gout if you don't want it. You can prevent it, and even once you get gout, you can prevent yourself from having the flare-ups if you choose to, by just avoiding the things that cause the flare-ups to happen. So, those are all of our diseases of this video. When we cover everything, we cover osteoporosis, we cover Paget disease, we cover Osteomalacia, Osteogenesis Imperfecta, Osteoarthritis, Rheumatoid Arthritis, and the gout. And I hope you notice that pattern, but most of the things that we cover in this video all start with osteo. It's a big indicator, big clue that the bones of the skeletal system is involved. So I hope you notice that pattern as we were going through these things. But make sure you categorize these and put them into nice categories for yourself to help you memorize them and help you remember them. And then as you come across other diseases in your studies, add them to the categories the same way that we did, so you can continue to differentiate the diseases, because that's the big thing, especially when you're going into medicine, is being able to differentiate the diseases. So putting them into a chart so that you can see the differences, and then continuing to put diseases that you learn into those categories as well, so that you can continue to separate them and also be able to tell the differences between them. Seeing things side by side in the chart format, for me, typically helps me to understand it a little bit better. And I would also encourage you to find some questions that are similar to things that you will see on different exams that you will be covering, so you can see how they will present these different diseases to you in different exam questions, just so you can be prepared for what is coming and the different types of questions that you'll see, and how you can utilize the information that I gave you in this video to make sure that you're passing the exams that you're taking. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed learning about the clinical cases with me. If you are interested in learning about more clinical cases and there are more things that you want me to compare from the skeletal system, make sure you comment those diseases down below in the comments, and I can definitely do another video, a part 2 on the clinical cases and how we differentiate them. But in the meantime, make sure you go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and hit that post notification bell like I told y'all in the beginning. And make sure you share this video so your friends can go ahead and spill the bottle of tea with me. Because you know you love sitting here with me. You know you love sitting with me. You know you love learning from me because I make it entertaining. I make it fun. I help you break it all down. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope your vibes are positive. I hope your energy is feeling great. And I hope you're really feeling excited about the content you're learning in class and all things clinical case related. So, I hope I see you in the next one. And I hope you have a great day. I'm out. Peace.